Hello and welcome to Heart of the Matter, where it's an honour to have Chloe join me, and been really super excited about this one because me and Chloe have got to know each other over the last few months, and we met up. I think it was about a month ago, and was on the beach, and we was chatting about children and just how that's so important, and about the knowledge that we need to share with children. So yeah, really excited that Chloe's joined me for the Heart of the Matter podcast tonight, and thank you for being here, sister. Thank you.
Thank you, Soul Brother. Yes, it is a real pleasure to be here, and I've been looking forward to it as well. It's been postponed, so it's great to finally get here and to be doing it.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, I think the name of the topic for tonight's conversation was about sort of knowledge is the key to share of our children.
Hmm.
So, I think you've got a lot of stuff that is on your heart and that you'd like to share. So, yeah, just I'll let you take it away, sister.
Yeah, I'm going to be sort of speaking a lot about raising children through this time, and obviously the knowledge that you mentioned, Calvin, is kind of
Mm.
key to that. So just to let people know a little bit about me. I'm a mum of two. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. I teach English as a foreign language, and I homeschool my kids. So they've never been to school at all. Um, and ever since I was little, I knew I wanted to be a mum. It was something that I really wanted to do. And I take my role as and my responsibilities as a mother really quite seriously. I know that might sound strange because I'm sure most mothers do, but I've always really prioritized my children and followed my instincts, I suppose. Ever since my children were born, I've just followed my instincts and done things the most kind of natural way. I suppose nowadays some people have put a label on that kind of parenting, which is attachment parenting. Now we can use that label, attachment parenting. I prefer natural parenting, but it's a similar sort of thing. And what that means really is just it means being with your child as much as possible and forming a really strong bond and attachment right from birth, from when they're born. The difficulties we have nowadays in kind of Western society, Western culture, sever that connection and sever that bond right from the start. So parenting nowadays is really, really hard. I've come to the realization though that it's not actually supposed to be this hard. It's because of these barriers that have been created by our societal structures and things that have been put in place which have made birthing and very medical procedure. There's just, as I said, barriers right from the get-go, which separate the mother from the child and the father as well at times. And this, I believe, has a knock-on effect for the rest of the child's life. So if that really strong connection and bond and attachment isn't formed right at the beginning, it's not impossible to then form it later down the line, but it does make it more difficult. And we do very much, again, in the Western cultures, see the normal or natural parenting as like alternative parenting. What's become normal in our culture is more separation parenting. So it's very normal in this kind of culture, for parents to be separated from their babies, their children. So separation parenting is the kind of culture that we're living in, and that's been, in my opinion, that's been created deliberately over many years, which makes it really hard for parents, because a lot of parents, if they try to do things differently to the norm, they might be ridiculed, they might not be supported very well by friends, family, even professionals. there's many professionals who I'm sure many of them are well-meaning, but they give a lot of advice to parents, which is actually quite damaging to that bond and that connection. So parenting nowadays is extremely difficult. It really is. It's just not supposed to be. This is something which keeps coming to me, especially in the last couple of years. Parenting isn't supposed to be difficult. We're supposed to be living in small communities, villages, and raising the children together. I know one thing we spoke about, Kelvin, as you mentioned when we met up on the beach, is that every child is like a child of the earth. Yeah. So, of course, my children, I gave birth to them. But when we live in these communities, small communities, some people still live like this nowadays. It's the responsibility of every adult there to help raise that child. And there's the saying, isn't there? It takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
And I could not agree with that more. When you have a whole group of adults who take on that responsibility, I just think how much less stressful it will be for parents, and how wonderful for the children to have all of these adult role model figures around them, giving them time and attention, rather than, nowadays, families being separated into these brick boxes, as I call them, and extended families living in different cities, different countries even, which, I get that. It happens. People want to travel. They want to explore the world, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we've become not only separated in the kind of parent-child dynamic, but even in the slightly bigger picture and the extended family. There's a lot of separation going on, which is bound to have an impact on the children. However, nowadays, it's not necessarily seen as a negative impact because that's become normal. So all these issues that we're seeing with children nowadays, I suspect, I can't say that this is a fact, but I suspect that they don't exist in cultures where families still live in close proximity of each other, or in tribes, which is maybe quite an extreme example compared to how we live. But in those kind of living environments, I suspect that children don't have the kind of behavioural problems and issues that children in this kind of culture and society do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny that I should bring in all this to our viewers. I remember the chat that I last had with Alison, because she's a part of the or not a part of the Samoa tribe, but actually basically her ancestral line is connected to the Samoa tribe.
A descendant.
And, she's a descendant and stuff and all that. So some of the stuff that she was sharing was really resonating with me as well, and it's a completely different experience. The way that they just live together and share together, and the way that they look after the children as well, and she'll be expanding on that more because I'm having her on at the end of the month. So it's sort of very very, very sort of to the fore to bring this here right now and to share this, because we've got so much to look into, about our ancestors, and to reconnect with that again, and that's where I believe that's where the real values lie. And everything you're saying just really resonates for me, and I'm just so glad that you're here tonight to share. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And definitely we can learn so much from our ancestors. We really can. The way that they would have lived together, and the children would have been a part of maybe not everything that went on within the tribe and community, but they were very much involved, much more involved compared to nowadays, because nowadays parents are generally so stressed with work or other commitments that they tend to want the children to be doing something so then they can do something for themselves. And even I feel this strain sometimes that, gosh, I need a break, because at the moment the responsibility is solely on me. I have a partner who lives with me, but he works very long hours. So the majority of the time, I'm the sole caregiver for my children. You know, I have family who don't live too far away, and they're happy to help out when they can. I'm very lucky to have them. They are there for me, but it's not the same as living together. And the other thing I wanted to bring into this is that when our ancestors lived in these tribes, these communities, they were teaching their children the kind of ancient wisdom and ancient knowledge, and they were the main influence on the children's way of thinking. They had the main input into that child's beliefs, whereas nowadays everything is kind of so fragmented, and children have so many different other sources where they can get information from. Like if they go to school, they've got teachers, they've got all their peers at school as well, who will have all very different opinions and different views. They've got the internet, which is a whole other, I could do a whole other podcast just on children and the internet. But nowadays, children have, I'm not saying it's a bad thing for children to necessarily be aware of different beliefs, and different opinions and different points of view. But I think the issue lies with the fact that nowadays, actually, in some cases, for example, the internet is having more of an influence on a child than their own parents, which, when you think about some of the stuff on the internet, that's actually really quite worrying that this is happening. And all of this ancient wisdom and knowledge that was being passed down to our children, I mean, a lot of it has been lost, although we are relearning, and many of us are well on that journey to learning. But I'm finding it really difficult to try and pass on this knowledge to my children, especially as I myself have grown and changed and evolved so much in the last couple of years. I only really started on a kind of spiritual path a couple of years ago. So I'm on this kind of quite new journey, and I'm trying to then pass on what I'm learning to my children. And it's difficult for them because I never used to have these kind of views and beliefs as I do now. So I'm finding that difficult to adjust to as well on a personal level. I'm adjusting to my new way of seeing the world, and trying to share that with my children. So what I was talking about, passing on the knowledge, it's key. It really is key. But it's very difficult for parents, even for parents who, well, maybe it's easier for parents who, before they have children, if they have a belief structure or set of beliefs, then they probably will try and pass that on to their children from an early age. But I think it's quite difficult to successfully do that nowadays, especially if your children go to school or they spend a lot of time away from you. You've got less opportunity for that connection and that, opportunity. And I mean, the elders of tribes, they will always tell stories and things around the fire, and things like this still happen. I know they do, but they're not happening as they were, as our ancestors did. And my heart's desire is actually to be living in a community where we have a fire every night, and we tell stories, and we drum, and we sing, and we connect, and we go back to that really simple way of life. And the children, you don't need to necessarily even teach the children, because they're just seeing things happen. They're seeing things play out. Of course, some things need to be taught, but the way that you're connecting with each other and interacting with each other obviously passes on to the children. But nowadays, so many of us communicate through phones and computers. And again, there's a place for that. There's definitely a place for it, but it's just become the norm. And again, that separation, to constantly be on a screen, to do not just communicate, but to do everything nowadays. People seem to use screens to do everything. And it's just another distraction, another way to break that connection, with your child and with our fellow human beings as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of distractions out there for sure, and it's nice, as we know, when we actually come together in the physical and connect that way, there's just something more in that, isn't there? When you have that actual connection,
Definitely.
that's why we make that effort to do that. Me and you, Chloe,
Yeah.
when we got the time, and I know that you have a life like everyone else does, and that, but when we have that time, it's a wonderful time, and the things that we
Yeah.
share and what we talk about, and stuff. And yeah, what's this really all about? That's really about care, isn't it? Real care, and taking that care that we've experienced and sharing that care with the children. I'm not in that position myself, as I'm 53. I'm single. I've never had children, but they are my children. They're the
Yeah.
children of this
Children of
earth,
the earth. Yes,
and
exactly.
I know that I have my experiences that I'll be gaining, and I'll be able to share those very things with the children that I interact with. So
Yeah,
I
of
want to be I
course.
want to be a part of that, and
Yeah.
yeah, massively.
And
Yeah.
within every kind of community, tribe, you do need some kind of diversity. So you will have, the married couples, but then you'll also have the single people. And having that diversity, I think, is good, because, we're all on our own individual paths, our own individual journeys. And
Mm.
like you said, we've all got so much to share, whether we've got children or not, it doesn't really matter. We've still got knowledge to share with the children and care.
Mm.
Just looking, because I have made a few notes of things I really want to mention.
Mm.
Yes, okay, I haven't spoken about this yet. Something else which I feel has become quite worrying nowadays with raising children is not only at the internet, but also is that so many parents, and this isn't a judgment, by the way, but so many parents willingly hand over like power and control to other adults to kind of raise their children, or at least help raise their children. And in many cases, and I'm talking about school here, in many cases, parents aren't even aware of what their children are actually really learning or being exposed to. And from my research, definitely in the last couple of years, there are some things on the curriculum currently which are shocking, to say the least. So whilst I said, it's good for children to get information from different sources. I'm not saying that's a negative thing. When the parents aren't really aware of what their children are being exposed to, that is really worrying. Yeah, for me, my children have never been to school, so it's never been something that I've had to worry about. But I worry about the other children, because I have care for all the children of the earth, and I do worry the impact that it's having on. I went to school, and I turned out fine, and I know lots of kids who do go to school, and I'm sure they will be okay, but on a kind of bigger scale, bigger picture, what it's doing to the collective consciousness of this planet, worries me, because the children who are being taught a lot of the things at schools, they're kind of being taught, they're having agendas pushed on them and things like this. And all of those things are designed to kind of lower the consciousness, the collective consciousness of the planet. So that really does worry me. Although I have heard a lot more parents speaking about their concerns about the education system in recent years. So who knows? Maybe we may see changes within the school system. I'm not sure how likely that is. I do know that the number of parents choosing to home educate has been increasing quite rapidly in the last few years. So I'm sure there's a myriad of reasons why parents are choosing to do that, but I have heard personally quite a lot of them speak about concerns. So that's a good sign, in my opinion, that parents are thinking about what's going on in school, and they're trying to get that connection back with their children, and that control. Control often has a negative connotation to it, but ultimately, I think the parent should have the most control over their children. We are their parents. We're their guides in life.
And that's a good point, because that is it. When you say guides, that is it, because ultimately, they have to go out into the world, and learn things for themselves. That's part of life. That they end up with certain scenarios. They're going to help them to grow. That's if we wrap our children in cotton wool, that won't do any favors. It's all part of the process. It's all part of the process, the natural process, as I call it, as well.
It is.
So that's a very, very, very good way to look at it, as a guide, because they are their own individual being. And we have to always remember that,
Yes.
Ultimately, so.
This is one thing which I feel the school system fails to really properly address, is children as individuals. Whilst there's some fantastic teachers who try their hardest to, treat each student as an individual, it's challenging. I've taught in classrooms. So before I was teaching online, I've done teaching in classrooms, and it's really challenging when you've got 30. I mean, nowadays in kind of English schools, you've got more than 30 students usually per class, and no matter how good a teacher you are, no human being can give every single child the care and attention that they need as an individual. So for me, that's the beauty of home education, is that, okay, I've got 2 children, and I know people who have 5 or 6 children and they home educate. So they're not necessarily getting one-on-one interaction constantly, but it's a much smaller ratio than in a classroom. And at home, the people who are kind of taking care of the children, whether it's mother, father, maybe grandparents sometimes, we're a lot more, attuned to our children and to their needs. So some children may need more physical activity, or some children may need this, and we can provide that for them as parents. If we're home educating, then we can cater more specifically for their needs.
Absolutely. And it's the only way I can express is, it's just the experience that we've had, especially for me, same as you. It's been the last year really that's been a more of a change. Obviously I was on that journey before that, but I would say it's the last year. And things have just completely sort of shedded away, and you just start to see things in a much bigger picture all the time, and
Yes.
and yeah, and obviously, I think it was most probably my last discussion that I had with Ahmed, actually, when we was doing the Escape from Arkham Asylum one, and we're going to do a part 2 and a part 3 on that, actually. But
Nice.
I think it was on that one that he mentioned about, that out of all of this, the most important thing he said is the children. And
Mm,
I was just like, I was
yeah,
like, yeah, it's about the children,
it is.
and we really need to put our focus into that. That's how I feel, and because that's where the importance lies.
Yeah,
That we can give them that knowledge, we can give them that wisdom, so that they can then pass it on, and so on and so on and so on.
yeah.
Because that's how I see it, and I know that the enemies of life are going to try and do everything they can to try and skew with our children. So
Oh, definitely. And
yeah.
as I think I mentioned kind of when I was introducing myself a little bit, that these
Mm,
enemies of lives, I like that term for them.
mm,
I do believe that these barriers have deliberately been put in place
mm,
by them, quite subtly, but it's becoming more and more obvious now.
mm.
It's definitely becoming more and more obvious. And nowadays with technologies, there's so many different ways that they can get to them and poison them,
Mm,
really.
mm,
They are poisoning them. Um, when you saying, children are the future. Now, there is a song which it's an absolutely beautiful song, and
mm.
it's called Young Roots. It's by a man called Paul Izak, who has become one of my favorite musicians recently. He
Okay.
sings about things that really matter. And
Mm.
this song is about the children. They are the young roots. And
Beautiful.
he talks about, passing on the knowledge to them.
Wow.
Um, it's an incredible song. It
Mm,
really is.
mm, mm, mm,
Every time I hear it, like I have tears in my eyes. I really do. And it's kind of, he does kind of reggae type style
mm,
music, so
mm,
it's quite happy music, but it brings tears to my eyes because the lyrics are, it's just so beautifully put. The way that he puts it, he has a real way with words, and I just think that is it there in that song. that
mm,
is that is explains it so beautifully, how the children, he
mm,
says, nurturing the young roots grows a strong tree,
mm,
so really nurturing our children.
mm.
Um, it will help them to grow into a strong tree, and we need strong trees in the future. That's what we need. We need these strong trees
Yeah, for
um
sure.
with the knowledge that we've passed on to them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Do you think you can find that song so we can share it underneath for the viewers?
Definitely,
Yeah, we'll do that.
definitely.
We'll put that in there for the
Yes,
listeners.
I would
For the
love to
listeners,
share
yeah,
it.
we'll do that. We'll do that.
Yeah, I'll do that
Yeah,
while I'm
wow.
chatting. I'll get the link for it up.
And yeah,
Um,
so what I'll do is I'll add that to the description, and yeah, the viewers can go and check that one out. But
yeah,
yeah, thanks.
and
And do you know, it's funny because as you were sharing that with me again, creativity so
yeah,
important,
it
you
is.
know. And this is the thing, that I really within me, there's that drive. It's almost like that's a massive part for me. It's the creative side. Whether it's podcasts, whether it is you know, uh, just having a chat with somebody, and the creative essence that comes out of that, and my music. And my music's always been a massive part for me,
Mm,
and I love to share. That's always been my thing, to share and see people just have a beautiful time as I take them on a journey. So,
yes,
and it's all these wonderful things that we can give in so many different ways. We have all our own gifts,
we do.
and we can
And
bring that all together.
yeah,
Mm,
and music was a big thing for our ancestors. I briefly mentioned like the drumming around the
mm,
fire, and all of these kind of more old ancient instruments, really simple ones that they made and played, and music was something which it would have been really important part, and it still is for many of us today. I know it is, definitely, but it would have been something that everybody would have been involved in, whether they were playing, dancing, listening. It was all happening there in that tribe, and you're all having that experience together. And music can be used to heal, it can be used to to uplift you. It can be used for so many different things.
Yeah, and like I said, because I remember one of my very first memories, as a very young child, my mum would give me a record deck and I had records, 7-inch singles, and it just lit up this beautiful world within me, and I go back to that, and even now it really touches me. It's like a real medicine. It's never left me. It's never left me. It's a language in its own, music for me.
It is, and it's universal as well. And all these kind of creativity. And I know that a lot of children nowadays are still creative. I mean, my children, particularly my daughter, is very creative, artistic. But I do feel that is something as well that is kind of being lost. Children are kind of being spoon-fed too much and becoming, generally speaking, they're becoming quite passive, and they're not being encouraged as much to use that creativity and to find their passions. They're just being put through on this kind of conveyor belt of, like, you go to school, you sit your exams, you do this, you tick all the boxes, and then you get a really good job, and it's not so much about the passion and the joy and the things that light you up and the things that feed your soul. That's what we need to be teaching to our kids. My son said something to me a little while ago, which it made me feel so sad. And then actually I realized it was an opportunity for teaching. So then I turned it around. But we were out somewhere with friends and we had to leave because I had to work. And he was struggling to say goodbye to his friends. And I said, look, darling, we have to go. I have to work. And he said, well, why do you want to work? I said, well, I love my job, but also, and he said, you're not supposed to love your job. You're supposed to hate your job. And I said, who told you that? I can't actually remember who told him, but I said, no. I said, life is too short to be doing a job you hate. I said, you need to be doing something that fills you with joy and happiness, something you're passionate about. Sometimes we may find ourselves in situations where we, maybe we have to take a job for a short time that might not be the best job or, the most exciting job. People sometimes find themselves in circumstances where it's not possible to follow their true passion. But in those circumstances, I believe it's important that when you're not working, you're doing as many things as possible to, to drive that creativity, that passion, that joy. Yes. But I do think it's possible for everyone to, to get their dream job, or a job they are passionate about, something that they enjoy. And that's the kind of messages that we need to be giving to our children. Not that you need to pass these exams and you need to get a job and you need to have a good salary and you need to do this and you need to do that. No, just chill, just let's enjoy life. Let's just enjoy life.
Absolutely. And that, again, where's it all lie? Where's the true value lie? This is where this is what it's about, isn't it? It's like, it's not in the world, it's not in the money, it's
well, not that kind of money.
Not that kind of money. Yeah, the real value lies in obviously our children and the people that we connect with as well, and spend time with. That's where the real value is. So I'm totally there with you on that one, sister.
Yeah. And that word money, whenever I hear that word, I can't not think about the real meaning of that word, the
That's right.
etymology of that word,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
basically translates as one eye.
That's it. One eye.
One eye.
Yeah. One eye. Yeah. That's where
One eye, one eye.
yeah.
This
That's
is
where
the real wealth
the real
here.
wealth.
You
Yeah, the
know,
one
it's
eye.
our third eye, our
Yeah.
pineal gland, however
That's
you
it.
want to articulate that.
Yeah.
And Mark Passio,
Mm.
some of the people listening might be aware of who he is. I know
Mm.
you are aware, Kelvin.
Yeah, I've listened to a few of his podcasts over the years.
Yes, yeah, he's got a lot of material out there. But
Mm.
I recently watched his seminar on natural law, and something he mentions in that is the etymology of the word money, one eye, and he talks about the currency of consciousness.
Mhm.
So obviously the money that we hold in our hands that we're told makes us rich, you know, this is the real wealth here, this paper and this metal actually really is meaningless compared to the currency of our consciousness.
Yeah.
And what he says is that the currency of our consciousness is how we spend our time and what we pay attention to. So we have to be very careful about what we spend our time on and pay attention to. We need to make sure that these things, you know, are beneficial to us and they're not poisoning us, polluting us. And the same goes for our children. So, you know, as parents, we have to be very conscious and aware of what we're spending our time on and paying attention to, because children pick up on that. They do. You know, we are their role models and they pick up on that. So to be, you know, a conscious, mindful parent, you have to really be quite, you know, aware of yourself, definitely. And we're all a work in progress as far as I'm concerned. So nobody's ever going to be perfect. No. Like, what the fuck is perfect, really? We are perfect because we're imperfect. That's how I see it. So yeah, we have to be very careful what we spend our time on and pay attention to, and our children will see that. And if what we spend our time on and pay attention to is benefiting us, they will also see that. They'll see the positive effect it has on us, and they will feel that by the energy that we give off as well, you know, and the kind of energy and environment that we're in. If my children know that doing yoga in the morning makes me feel really good, and it kind of sets me up for the day. A bit of yoga, a bit of breath work, that's what works for me. Everyone's got different things they do to, you know, it could just be a cup of coffee. If that's what makes you feel good in the morning, and, you know, then that's your little ritual, your habit, then it's about just doing those things that bring you joy, and always consciously being aware, which isn't always easy in the world that we live in. It's not easy.
No. But you know, again, you know, that helps us as well, you know, that just those little things like that, because you know, if we use those tools, you know, like whatever you said, you know, whether it's breath work, you know, yoga, or going into the woods and grounding yourself,
yes,
spending some beautiful time with that tree, you know, all these things, you know, and then that very essence of what we take in, you know, is going to help the children that we interact with as well, you know. So again, it's just, it helps, it all helps and stuff and that. So it's one of those things, you know. I need that, you know. I need that because you know, before the beginning of the day and all of that, I just think I need to stop here, just like, just 2 minutes, of just sitting there and just do a little bit of breath work, cup of tea, you know. That's my little thing in the morning and stuff like that, before the beginning of the day, you know.
A bit of calm and a bit of still, just checking in with yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, how am I feeling today? And just kind of accepting that, and yeah,
for sure. And it helps. I find it helps to ground me more in that day, you know, as I go through the day. So it's something that's helped me, you know. I've been doing that more over the last year, I think, you know, and I've noticed noticed a lot of change, and the inner dialogue that I have myself,
Mm.
this inner conversations, and yeah, it's oh, and that's the thing, it's our own personal journey. Chloe, you have your inner world, I have my inner world,
Mm.
and we're all uniquely different in that, and a beautiful expression of that, because we only get to experience our own inner world, you
Yeah.
know. I know people get to see the outside part,
Yeah.
so it's a beautiful thing, and a lot of people but get very caught up within the matrix, and
Oh, definitely. And they're looking out there all
yeah,
the time. They're not
yeah,
looking inward.
inwardly. Mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm. Yeah. So it's always a good reminder, that we have these beautiful, tools that we can use around us,
Mm.
um, even astrology, it's another tool.
Yeah.
That's something that, again, that can be passed on to our children. And
Yes.
I'm going to start looking into the tarot more as well. So it's just all these little things, they're all tools, and all related to psychology, because they help us to get
Yep.
to understand
Of
more about
course.
ourselves,
Yeah.
and
And so
mm,
many of, like the things you just mentioned, astrology,
mm,
tarot, and many other things would have been
mm,
kind of standard practice in the past.
mm, mm,
And there's a reason why they're not standard practice today, because the enemies of life realized, a long time ago, how beneficial these things were to
mm,
people. So whilst there are many people who still learn those things, teach those things, it's not on the scale that it would have been sort of 100+ years ago. So we need to we don't all need to learn about all of these ancient things, but like as you mentioned before, we've all got our own things we can
mm,
bring to the table, bring to the children, as it were. We've all got
mm,
our own kind of areas
mm,
that we're interested in, and the things that we gravitate towards that we can pass on.
And again, as you say, as you were sharing then, even if even if your role, Chloe, is to just be a good mum,
Mm,
then so be it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know that you're most putting way more than that, but even if it was that very
Mm-hmm,
one thing, that you've done, you've done a fantastic, beautiful, work here on earth,
mm,
just even that, by being
yeah,
a
yeah.
real good, healthy mum, in your beautiful way, but I know you're more than that, but and that's where it starts really, it does start the mum, and as Ahmed was once sharing, I always remember him saying about, that the women are the foundation of the, of the foundation of the earth. You are the
Mm,
foundation of the earth, and yeah, and there's a lot of when it comes to psychology, a lot of people forget that actually a lot of this mind control that's being used by the enemies of life, most of it is aimed at the women.
yeah, it is.
Michael
It
Tassaran
is.
talk, yeah, Michael Tassaran talks about that a lot.
Because
So
I
there you go.
think there's a lot of distractions for the men. And again, this is very generalization, but this is something I read something um probably back last year at some point about how a lot of the mind controlling is directed at the women, because generally the male brain is easier to distract. So there's kind of a lot of distractions for the men, but the
Mm,
women are not so easily distracted. So they have to work a bit harder to kind of get into their brains and control them. That's something that I read, and I can't remember who
mm,
wrote it or where I read it now. But
mm, mm,
yeah, a lot of it is um is more directed at the women.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I remember that be shared again. Ahmed shared that, and yeah, and it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense, especially because the women, are the foundation. So
And
that's where they're going to aim it one way.
yeah.
So,
And I think in recent years, women have really been kind of taking their power back. And
mm,
I don't mean in a kind of like feminist way necessarily.
yeah,
I yeah, I mean, there's a lot of men who are coming into their power as well, don't get me
mm,
wrong.
mm,
But I do think that there's been a very female energy,
mm,
and apparently that's on the increase as well. And that can actually benefit, men as well as women, because we all have male and female within us to a certain degree. Yeah, so it's interesting times we're living in, definitely.
absolutely,
Definitely
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. And as you know, with all this what I call it, well, we call it the Archon Asylum because it's yeah, it's one of those things when we see all the stuff going on out there in the world, around us, but also what I've begin to or have begun to realize is as well is that Archon Asylum's been created in us as well from all the
Oh,
from all the
definitely.
programming from being a child
Yes.
up, and so
Yeah, yeah.
there's this whole sort of deprogramming that's going on within me even.
Yeah.
So does that make sort of sense?
It makes total sense, Kelvin, because
Mm,
um from a very young age, actually, I've had a deep sense that we're being lied to on
mm,
quite a big scale. And I've pondered this a lot, like where did that sense come from? Now, I, personally, I think it may have come from a past life, a knowing, a wisdom from a past life that was
mm,
with me, because nobody in my family was particularly aware of a lot of the things that are really going on in the world. So it wasn't kind of being shown to me or presented to me by anybody around me. I went to school, so I wasn't getting much truth from my education, unfortunately. So I think that deep sense, that knowledge came from some kind of past life. But as I've started only in very recent years really exploring this sense that I've got of we're being lied to, it's just like, oh my goodness. Literally nearly everything I've been told my life is a lie, not only in the bigger picture, but kind of on a personal level as well, as you said. And you do have to deprogram yourself into out of their kind of image, of how they want us to be. They want us to be easily manipulated and controlled. But we're coming out of that, and it's difficult. It's really fucking difficult because I'm seeing everything in a new way, in a new light. And as I said, I'm struggling with that, and at the same time parenting, because it's like, I was doing this, but now I don't think that's right, and I'm seeing things a different way, and I'm having to
mm,
adjust to it all. But
mm,
it's beautiful, but at the
mm,
same time, it's tough. That
mm,
the personal journey, the shadow work, and all of that stuff is um it's really tough, and balancing that with mothering at the same time. It's not for the faint-hearted.
mm. Yeah, I mean, who said it was easy? But but it's the wheel, isn't it? That's what I call it. It's like the wheel. I have this wheel inside of me, that yeah, it just keeps. There's this energy, this wheel inside of me that just keeps me
Hmm.
going.
Well, that's what
That's about the only way I
sorry,
can put it. That's about the only way I can put it, really. So,
that's what you may already know this, but chakra means wheel.
mm, mm,
So these chakras that we have within us are like almost like wheels of energy. So it's interesting that you use that word wheel. And I've been looking into chakras a bit in the last year or so. So
but
I just
it is. It's sort of like wheel, as in, as in WILL as well. It's funny, isn't it? It's
yes,
funny,
will
just
and wheel.
wheel,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
that similarity there, isn't there? Do you know? It's
Yes.
a play on words again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's been a lot of playing on words within the kind of mainstream narrative. And again, like I spoke a little bit about money and the etymology of that. And when you start looking at the origins of a lot of other words that we use on a daily basis, and words that are kind of shoved in our face by the mainstream narrative, you just think, whoa, maybe if more people really knew the true meaning of these words, would that, I don't know, would it make a difference? Because it's a lot of programming has taken place, as we're aware. So it's fascinating, the word play.
It is. Yeah. It is that. Is there anything else as well that you have to share that you'd like to
I think
expand on as well?
really there's just some kind of recommendations of like some books, and it's mostly books actually, because I love to read, not only novels, but I love reading books to gain knowledge as well. And they're all on a kind of around parenting, but slightly different area of it. There was a book which I thought I was going to talk about a lot more during this podcast, but I think that may mean that we need to do a part 2, Kelvin.
We will.
So that I can discuss this particular book in a bit more detail. So there's one book. I mean, do you want me to write the names in the chat? Would that be helpful for you?
Because what we'll do is that if you can send me the books and the books and maybe a link or something with them, and what I'll do is I'll put them in the description below for the viewers.
Okay.
That'd be a wonderful thing if we can do that. For sure.
Shall I say the names now?
Absolutely.
As well?
I mean, share away. Yeah, for sure.
So that one it's called Hold On to Your Kids, and it's by someone called Gabor Maté, who's written a lot of books, and I've read a few of his books. He does a lot about health as well. So he's got some really good books. The next one is called Soul to Soul Parenting. So this is by someone called Annir Burneside, and I'm not really aware of anything else that she has done, but I came across this book. I think it was like in a second-hand sale or something like that, and it just was kind of calling me. And I'm really glad that I picked it up. Oh, my son is here. I think he's having trouble sleeping, but we're nearly finished. So, we're nearly finished. Oh, okay. So it's by Annir Burneside. And then the next book, it goes back to what I was saying before about the barriers that have been created right from when babies are born, really, that connection. They try to sever that connection. So this one focuses more on kind of pregnancy, birth, and breastfeeding, but it's a very informative book, and it talks about how birth and breastfeeding are natural processes. They shouldn't be medicalized, and that's by someone called Michel Odent. He's a French guy. Again, he's written a lot of other books as well. And my last recommendation is actually a YouTube channel. There are still some good things on YouTube, like your podcast, Kelvin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that.
And this one, which is called After Skool. So I'll put this. Yeah, you're aware of this one, Kelvin.
Yeah.
This is great because the videos in it are really they tackle really quite deep topics, but I believe in quite a child-friendly way.
Yes. yeah. And it's funny that you've shared that one, because I've taken a couple of actual little sort of videos that they've done, and I'm going to put me in my part below. But yeah,
Okay,
because I put
perfect.
one by Cole Young and by Alan Watts.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm going to put those down there, but also I will put the link in for the actual channel as well from
Okay,
you as well. And that, because yeah,
perfect.
it's great. It reminds me, it's beautifully done,
Yes.
and it's something you can sit there and share with your children. So
Yeah, I've watched several
yeah,
videos with
for
my
sure, for
children
sure.
because, as much as the internet is, it's worrying, there are
Mm,
still some
mm,
useful
mm,
things on there that can actually help us to
yeah.
um, raise our children in a
Mm,
conscious,
mm, mm.
mindful way.
Mindful way, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
from my end of things as well, what I was going to just say was, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention a book as well, and this
Hmm.
really helped me, because when I got into alchemy, uh, this uh, was a book that was very uncomplicated, and it's called The Beginner's Guide to Alchemy by Sarah Durn, and I'm going to is what I should do is I should put that in the underneath in the description for the viewers as well. And what I
Hmm.
liked about it is, as well, as it's got obviously about alchemy in there and stuff now, but it's done in very layman's terms, and it all comes into astrology as well and all of that. It's a brilliant book. It's
Yeah, it
like
sounds great.
so simple the way it's been put across. She's done a great job of it. So that's going to be my recommendation from me as well. So
Okay.
yeah, so thank you. Thank you for joining me, and for the wisdom that you've shared here tonight, sister. It's been absolutely amazing, and yeah, we'll have to definitely carry on. I think
Yeah.
there's
Thank you for having me.
plenty more stuff to be shared and stuff,
There
and
is definitely.
we can
And I,
expand. We can
yeah,
expand
yeah,
on that.
yeah. We can,
So
yeah, because I
yeah,
feel that, this time I shared quite a lot.
mm,
But there are certain aspects that maybe I'd like to go into a bit more detail with you, Kelvin.
absolutely, that'd be beautiful. Because
Okay.
I'm here learning as well. So that's all good. Right.
Okay.
Is there any final words that you'd like to say before we bring this podcast to a
Um,
close as well? So,
just again, thank you for having me on.
mm,
And it's been really great to share um what from my experience, because we've all got things we
mm.
can share, and I just really hope that it might resonate with some people. And I look forward to coming back again.
Thank you, thank you. And just a quick mention as well, Chloe, that you'll be joining us for the Connection Festival on the 25th of February. February, yes, it is February,
Yes,
and you're going to be
yes,
doing a
February.
guided meditation there as well for us. So, yeah, just let people know about that as well, and I'll put all the information below for the viewers as well for that as well.
Yes,
And
I'm so looking forward to that.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I've got
that's fine. That's
one
fine.
of my children is struggling to sleep.
Yeah. No,
It's
that's okay. I'll
it's
let you
part of
go.
mothering.
Part of mothering. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. But
Okay.
thank you for giving me your time, Chloe. It's been
You're very welcome.
beautiful to have you here, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Yes,
Thank you, soul sister.
definitely.
Much
Bye
love to
bye,
you.
myself, brother.
Much love.
Namaste.
And much love.
Bye.
I know the time will come when we welcome everyone.